Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I welcome all of you back to another Christian Quickie reading, where tonight, ladies and gentlemen, as we're sort of like going through a number of articles related to Chris's business ethics, his morality regarding business, his ludicrous backward approaches about how he thinks he can make money, we also have to enforce about the idea of what exactly do we know when Chris comes to such concepts such as copyright, which is a confusing and very, very bizarre discussion point, only because Chris knows increasingly little about how copyright actually works, how the law works in terms of his creative ideas, and then how the copious speculations about idea theft that Chris can literally just pull out of thin air and decide that he's perfectly fine on the grounds that his works is like, he relies on things like loopholes in order to seem that his work is his own, you could say. So, here we go. Anyone using my characters and or without my consent are criminals, and such people should be reported to the police immediately. And this is literally on Chris's on Wikipedia's copyright page. And by the way, in case you're wondering what this is Chris's copyright registration certificate from the University of Virginia, where did they say it's from the Congress of, from the Register of Copyright, from like but basically, title of work, Sonichu, complete publication. Incorrect, because Sonichu is ongoing, so it's not complete. It was Sonichu issue 0 when it came out, yes, but that's it. Author, whether you want to say that's subject to change because Chris legally changed his name, is entirely up for debate as well. Work made for hire, yes. Citizen of the United States, born 92. Address, certification, September 18th, 2009. So, we'll come back to this. As with many things, Chris has a very limited understanding of copyright and how it's enforced. He is vaguely aware of what it is, some sort of a legal right that creators of things have that lets these creators to tell others what they can and cannot do. A very naive view, though not entirely incorrect. It's probably a little bit more confusing than that, so let's begin. By the way, Chris telling some trolling stupid corporate lawyers that he owns the rights to Sonichu. Sonichu as a copyrighted work. Chris really only has one real first-hand experience on the copyright questions that formed the basis of everything that followed. While working on a school project that required making a CD cover, his teacher successfully explained to him that the Sonic the Hedgehog and Pikachu are characters created by other people, and he has no right to use them and has to create something original instead. Chris reacted to this by creating an original combination of the two characters, and thus Sonichu was born. In The Father Call, he also says that the teacher told him that he'd been in the clear with the beginning as far as copyright is concerned. However, the fact that the teacher unwisely accepted Sonichu as original cemented Chris's vague understanding of the law, and now Chris is simply unwilling to learn the truth. In his mind, mashing together two different characters and putting a little C in a C circle around his John Hancock creates completely new intellectual property that is his and his alone. In reality, any work that uses previously copyrighted work as a basis is a derivative work. This means that while it may have substantial original elements that the creator definitely holds a copyright on, it cannot be published or distributed without the permission of the original copyright holders. So, and yes, because Chris basically took, so Chris is completely out of luck from that moment. The reality isn't entirely clear-cut. However, and there are several exceptions to the rule, both well understood fair use doctrine, which allows limited use of copyrighted material for journalistic and scholarly purposes, and less well understood. There's an ongoing debate about the emerging copyright issues like digital rights and the remixing arts. Unfortunately for Chris, Sonichu is a fairly clear-cut case of a derivative work. While the character design itself has some originality despite its blatantly derivative style, and as such might have passed the teacher's inspection, as far as a backstory is concerned, Sonichu explicitly said to be a fusion of two existing characters, by Chris and its creator, and in the comic story itself. Fundamentally, Chris wanted Electric Hedgehog Pokemon. If they are just some made-up characters and not Pokemon, they just aren't true enough for him. Unfortunately, Chris doesn't understand that such made-up characters aren't how people define creativity. Many creators do indeed borrow ideas from another work to create inspiration for original stories and concepts. Had Chris took inspiration from Pokemon and Sonic and made his original creations that isn't mishmashed together, that would be fine. However, the Sonichu comic makes copious usages of concepts from the Sonic and Pokemon franchises, as well as a myriad of others, meaning anything Chris does to profit from Sonichu renders him liable to be sued. This would be harmless enough if he weren't actually profiting from it, but for 2 years he was, and if any of the franchises he was plagiarized from had decided to pursue legal action, Chris would have been torn to shreds in court. Fortunately for Chris, an autistic moron hawking products on Etsy was unlikely to incur the wrath of a major multinational company. The worst he's likely to receive is a cessation demand, aka a cease and desist. It makes you also kind of wonder, maybe 25 years, maybe either they were not interested, well... Oh, hang on. Hello? Yes, please. Oh, yes, please. Right, how long would that be, by the way, just out of interest? 15 minutes. Okay, thank you. Love you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, sorry about that. Had to make a very quick phone call, so, we're back. Ban from Lulu. Chris was banned from the self-publishing site Lulu in December of 2015, since the staff recognized that Sonichu is a piece of fan fiction. The sting of an actual business calling him out on the truth seemed to finally impress upon him the impossibility of defending Sonichu as an original work. More than a year after the ban, Chris continued to scapegoat Lulu to explain why he was unwilling to work on the comic he had been paid over $1,000 to do on commission, saying in January of 2017 that the pester of legality questions and disputings in my creations and work is the biggest reason that have caused him to have an inability to feel like drawing and writing the stories. Not good enough. Chris as an enforcer on rights, or of rights. Chris is very paranoid regarding his copyright, and will frequently hand out all of his personal information to complete strangers if he thinks it can be contested. This has backfired in a number of ways. Chris has encouraged people to report copyright infringements to the police. The police, unfortunately, can't do much when random citizens report civil offences such as copyright infringement. Even if Chris had the rights to the works in question, suing people for copyright infringement would be Chris's job and his job alone, or that of a representative whom he had specifically appointed to the specific task. Unsurprisingly, Chris is a total hypocrite when it comes to abusing the work of others' creations. In the space of 13.5 issues, Chris pulled characters and concepts from innumerable franchises, and even went so as far to steal original characters from fans and sweethearts, with little respect shown to their creators. He's even had the balls to take another creator's characters, alter them, and demand that thenceforth they be portrayed the way he has made them in the original material. See the Aspachu saga for that full story. Despite how firmly Chris holds on to his views of copyright when directly challenged on why it's okay for him to rip things off but not okay for other people to do the same for Sonichu, he's unable to think of a response. What do you expect? Furthermore, Chris refuses to listen to the original creators on these original characters when they asked to have their characters removed. The best example would be the fight between Evan and Chris over the character Simone Rosechew, a rip-off of Evan's character Sonichu. When Evan demanded that Chris remove Simone from the comics is an on-page death, Chris refused because it would take Wild Sonichu's girlfriend away. As time went on, Chris fought tooth and nail to keep Simone in, going as far as to write out a scenario where Sonichu is told to Evan that Simone likes Quickville. In the end, it took 2 shutdowns of the Wikipedia for Chris to finally surrender and kill off Simone. And he just resurrected her a few years later anyway, so what the hell, Chris? What the actual hell? Licensing and terms of use. The MediaWiki software used on Wikipedia had various built-in settings for content licensing. During installation, MediaWiki defaults to the GNU Free Documentation License, which states that the content can be reused elsewhere for any purposes, as long as proper copyright holder attribution and license references are given. On the 6th of September 2009, a fan wrote to Chris and thanked him for allowing this reuse, which provoked an uncharacteristically swift response for Chris, demanding the wiki sysop, or the system operator, not so politely to remove the obvious erroneous GDU FDL license. This prompted Chris to write his own copyrights and terms of use pages. The legal problems Chris caused the terms are detailed elsewhere in this article. The terms of use are even weirder. Any and all visually grotesque, shocking, and offensive works will be immediately deleted and not be uploaded or ever seen again. No resubmissions allowed of such pieces. All letters addressed to any name other than Christian Weston Chandler or Christopher Weston Chandler will be immediately disposed of with paper recycling or be returned to sender, with a frown face on it. All visually grotesque, shocking, and offensive artworks and letters will be disposed of properly as well. Fan sites should be pre-approved by Chris. Sending spam to Sega and Nintendo about making official Sonichu games is apparently a part of terms of use. What Chris thinks terms of use is, I don't know. Copyright registration. It appears that Chris has actually paid the sum of $45 and somehow got Sonichu approved by the United States Copyright Office. On the 12th of November 2009, he also posted a scan of the confirmation letter he received to Wikipedia, and posted a highly predictably "my heart level just went to 100% again" video. Psychologically, this copyright registration represents a big win for Chris, because it gives him what he thinks are bragging rights. Even though he has no idea that the copyright registration actually means, copyright registration isn't an official recognition of copyright. However, copyrights are granted automatically, and copyright registrations are only an official assertion that a specific work has been created at a specific date by the registrant. The registrations are only needed when suing another party for copyright infringement. It is not a registration of a trademark. Chris has no special rights for the name Sonichu itself. Finally, Chris made a critical mistake in filing the registration application. He described Sonichu as a work for hire in the apparent belief that this meant the comic was his primary occupation, when it really means that he created it on behalf of someone else, who is considered the creator for legal purposes. It should also be noted that the United States Copyright Office does not check whether or not a registrant's work is infringing. So in theory, Nintendo could take the United States Copyright Office to court and say, "You're administering copyrights to someone else," but of course Nintendo wouldn't be able to do that because, again, work for hire means that he did this on behalf of somebody else, so Chris is shit out of luck. If Nintendo or Sega were to sue Chris, they would easily win in like less than 5 minutes. It's clear that they hold the rights to original characters like Sonic and Pikachu, and Chris's work is derivative. Therefore, in short, Chris's copyright registration doesn't mean his comics aren't non-infringing, nor does it effectively protect his own intellectual property. use of copyright notices. The way Chris maintains his so-called copyrights within his works is also baffling. It's possible he goes by the assumption that almost everything he draws must contain copious copyright notices, usually in a large disclaimer. Christian Weston Chandler, March 2002. Questions. It's worth noting that Chris obsessively includes copyright symbols in pictures he draws of Sonichu, including a picture he drew in the snow of his holiday greetings video and a doodle he drew on his ticket in the 2005 Anime Mid-Atlantic Convention. However, only daily newspaper comic strips have constant notices reminding about copyright due to their daily nature. In most forms of media throughout the world, one copyright notice at the beginning of the work is enough to assert rights, and only the year is noted in a copyright notice. Finally, the year of the creation of the specific work in question should be noted in the copyright notice. For example, Sonichu issue 10 should be at circa 2009 to 2010 Christian Weston Chandler. If Chris would want to specifically emphasize that Sonichu in general has existed since March 2000, he'd need to do so in addition copyright notice, e.g. Sonichu issue 10, copyright 2009 to 2010. Quick. Sonichu character at, Sonichu character itself, March 2000. But Christian is on the lookout. Long before his discovery by the trolls, Chris created a webpage called Christians on the Lookout, which linked to his main Sonichu site. Chris made the site no later than May 2006. Exactly how he used the site is not clear, especially since his main site did not link to this page. Christian's paranoia and arrogance regarding his copyright are on full display here. From Chris. A message for all those who are out to use the Sonichu name. From Christian Weston Chandler, original creator of Sonichu, and related characters and materials. I just want to inform all persons, fans of Sonichu or otherwise, that Sonichu was originally created on March 17, 2000, and I have a copyright of my faithful electric hedgehog Pokemon. I am very proud to share my Sonichu with the people who appreciate my creativity in Sonichu's world. I often do a search of Sonichu, and currently I only want to see links to my Sonichu site or related sites. If I see links to websites with any person who has used his name, I will view it. If I should see the Sonichu name used to describe any character other than my original electric hedgehog Pokemon, I will send you an email to inform you if you have intruded the copyrighted territory. And requested that you remove the name from your website or form entry and change it to something else. If, however, you do not abide to the request or do not reply to the email within 14 days, I may take legal action against you. I am not a mean person, and I am not out to start any trouble, so please do not use the Sonichu name in vain. If, however, you would like to create a fan website to describe my electric hedgehog Pokemon, please send me an email to quicksonichu@aol.com with information and talk about your fan site. I will view your fan site, and if I like it, I, Christian Weston Chandler, will send you an approval email, and you may keep your website up on the web. If I find it offensive, I, Christian Weston Chandler, will send you an email asking you to either change the content to something else or remove the website from the web. Also, if you would like to see Sonichu as a real video game or catch him in a Pokemon title, please send your request to Nintendo of America Incorporated or Nintendo Power Magazine. Please raise the hype on Sonichu so that I will be able to legally talk to the people of Nintendo of America Incorporated and make a deal. Sonichu and I, Christian Weston Chandler, thank you for following the legal guidelines expressed here. I sincerely hope that you enjoy the stories of my electric hedgehog Pokemon, and I also hope that you will voice your hype and interest about Sonichu and my world of Quickville to Nintendo of America Incorporated, so Sonichu can become a video game, cartoon or anime, and all that other neat stuff. Have a zapping day. This has been a message from Christian Weston Chandler, original creator of Sonichu. All Sonichu material is copyrighted from March 2000 to 2005 by Christian Weston Chandler. Now, considering the fact that some people would just look at this email and thinking that it was either a hoax or veiled threats, would have been entirely up to you. But to be honest, if I received this sort of email, I would have literally just ignored it and threw it away. Because, well, what exactly can Chris do to stop me? Not very much. That's what. Chris's motivations. In any case, Chris doesn't really care so much about what his copyright registration means and what it might or might not be good for. Practically speaking, to him, it's mainly just a crutch for his ego. In the aftermath of his feud with Liquid Chris, he sees it as the final and clinching proof that he is the true and original creator of Sonichu. On the 26th of November 2009, he posted the following as part of an announcement on the Wikipedia, which is quite illuminating. Also, I have been thinking, although all Sonichu merchandise sold online in the past I have labelled false, I did that because I came to, as a surprise to me then, I felt outraged and appropriately, most everyone can relate to that. It's comparable to if Godzilla or Clover, the Cloverfield monster, came to your metropolis, blah blah blah. I realize now that even if though it is not considerably not official, it is all still an homage to my creation. So I will make it clear to all those vendors, as long as it is not printed copies of my book's pages or bootlegged copies of my Christian Weston Chandler Yep, I'm on TV DVD, and as long as I am quoted on all websites and vendors, locations, as original creator of Sonichu, Rosechew, Quickville, and all such, I, Christian Weston Chandler, approve of such merchandise from day forward. At least to give you all, my patient, loyal fans and trolls, something to quell your palates until official merchandise is sold in official stores such as Toys R Us, GameStop, Best Buy, Walmart, etc. and such. I have spoken, and I wish everyone a safe and happy Thanksgiving. Chris Chan Sonichu, 17 past 2 in the morning, 26th of November 2009. In other words, Chris doesn't really care if other people use his supposed intellectual property so long as he's the one gets the credit for it, not some imposter in brown stripes. The idea expressed here is not unlike that in the Creative Commons attribution license. Patreon leaks. Since Chris began using Patreon for donations, in exchange for his continued work on Sonichu issue 11 and beyond, he has had, for the first time, an actual financial incentive to enforce the copyright of his work. Chris announced that he would initially release Sonichu issue 11 only to Patreon supporters. And this plan coming... Right, sorry guys, where was I? And this plan seemed to go off without a hitch, until several patrons leaked the exclusive pages that Chris had released so far, then notified Chris in his YouTube comments. Chris took swift action to protect his only source of income besides his monthly tugboat. In C-Log 06-14-2017, Chris begins by denouncing the leakers and comparing their actions, leaking the comic pages early, to the physical theft of purses and cell phones. However, Chris's copyright continues to be completely unenforceable, and it is almost certain that future Patreon pages will be leaked as well. Interestingly, Chris's intentions to keep future Sonichu issue pages exclusively to his patrons could be considered a form of fraud, as D-Stex already paid Chris $1,000 in September 2015 to make 100 pages of Sonichu, which, according to Chris's page count estimate in C-Log 06-23-2017, would cover the vast majority of the volume to be released. Also, Chris only did 16 pages, so what the hell, Chris? Chris's views. Chris is very protective of his characters. Chris believes that his characters are official parodies, thus he is allowed to create his multimedia empire on a legal loophole. What Chris fails to realize is that parodies are essentially mockeries of something they're based on, done for laughs or as a commentary on the original work. According to the US Supreme Court, Parody is in the use of some elements of a prior author's composition to create a new one that, at least in part, comments on that author's work. So if Chris was, say, making commentary on commercialization by making a pastiche of what was popular at the time, this would be fine. The fact that it is a parody and not plagiarism must alone be made obvious. Sonichu and Rosechu are not parodies, however, just shitty recolors. Chris doesn't mean to make fun of the characters they're based on, nor make commentary on them. He slavishly imitates this kind of adventures and have an attempt to tell his own stories. Even his most original characters are either based on someone he knows or are cribbed extensively from existing characters. Chris's plans for Sonichu issue 13 to be a crossover between his comic universe and the characters of the popular Planet Dolan YouTube channel, much like Nintendo and formerly Sega, the producers of the channel likely have never heard of Sonichu, much less gave Chris permission to use their characters, assuming Chris actually makes issue 13. Chris will likely offer a similar parody defense to his direct use of someone else's intellectual property. This is no longer the case, as Chris has been blocked by pretty much all of the Planet Dolan cast. In his disclaimer at the beginning of Sonichu issue 16, Chris revealed a new outlook on copyright law, made even more incoherent by the influence of the idea guys and his crumbling sense of reality. Despite what this world's legalities are, all of the events in this book have happened not only in Quickville and Equestria and Canterlot High School, but everywhere else in the same dimension where all of our fictional characters and individuals do exist and coexist. So, events where Bowser, Dr. Eggman, and even Voldemort work together for a common goal of overtaking our lands and worlds, that can happen. So in a passive-aggressive statement and a fair and just warning, I say to those fat cat legal people of this world, anything is possible. And when all of these evils attempt something in this world, and someone writes and draws every single detail about it chronicling it, do not even encourage copyright trademark lawsuits at all. Well, see you in court, Chris, because I can't wait for the day when Chris starts to try and rip off my work or starts saying that my work is non-canon for some reason, and I will wipe the floor with this jerk. Music. Many of Chris's songs from his old Christian and the Hedgehog Boys project have been taken down on YouTube for copyright. If Chris knew this, he would likely argue that his songs are parodies and thus fair use, just like everything else. The problem is that Chris's songs aren't parodies, nor they are reviewing the said songs, nor are they just covers with an instrumental version of the original song playing in the background. Just like how Sonichu and Rosechu are recolors and not parodies, Chris's songs are just rewrites of the originals, with said original drowning out most of his voice. Even if Chris's songs were legitimate parodies, he would still need to create his own instrumentals since the song recording itself is copyrighted. Most professional parody artists, including Weird Al Yankovic, hire backing bands for this purpose. Weird Al also asks the original artist for their permission because simply changing the words to a song doesn't make it a legitimate parody. There has to be some kind of criticism, and singing about food or boyfriend-free girls doesn't criticize the song itself. Words alone don't define copyright, and changing them will not only get you out of a musical plagiarism lawsuit. Fan art. Chris believes he has the right to use any fan art depicting a Sonichu character for his own purposes. A key example is his banner for Patreon and YouTube, which uses another person's fan art of Sonichu and Rosechu. Even though the accounts are meant to showcase his own work, and he has not given credit to the original artist, it's a lovely piece of art. I am not stealing it. A big red flag when somebody says they're not going to do something like that. I am using it in full appreciation of the artist that drew it, as much as possible. And it doesn't matter, it has Sonichu and Rosechu. They both are all others, and the city of Quickville are mine regardless. Chris responding to a fan's accusation of plagiarism by completely going on the offensive, which I may have not mentioned a point about this when it comes to Chris in business, but it's also never particularly a good idea to go into business with somebody who is this quick to offend. You know what I mean? Because how exactly are you going to gain their trust and respect if all they do is lash out at everybody else for things that they are completely in the right about and Chris will never admit? Because, as mentioned many times before, Chris's scaping thoughts and opinions on reality are dubious and very confusing, to the point of completely incoherence and inabilities. So I hope all of you guys have learned something through copyright, ladies and gentlemen, and you probably learned more about copyright in this video than you probably ever will from Chris, despite what he claims. And I can hope that you guys will check me out again in the next video. Take care, and bye-bye for now.